then they go through it alone.
Yes.
Because it's
I wanted to keep it like quiet, but then everybody's like, don't keep it quiet, don't isolate yourself because that's like the worst thing.
maybe it might be because.
Isn't that movie?
Or maybe move it and see if it clears up.
Oh, this is wacky.
I mean, it's doable, I guess. It's still doable.
I know.
just saying, we're like,
We were just saying
Not
that.
fair, it's just
And
I need some
Have
kind
you
of
used it?
glasses to refocus all this.
it's like the 3D glasses.
they're all the same. You stare at it too much, you'll fall off your chair.
Yeah. It's a little.
Oh, they're all messed up.
They're all messed up, yeah.
Will it be transmitting through here?
Okay.
That was mine.
What's wrong with this baby? No, she didn't. Oh, baby. Sorry. There's a text thread between us and our nanny. Somebody's just a little pooped today.
Somebody doesn't feel good. Oh, but
She was doing fine this
she's
morning.
kind of adorable still.
She's
Yeah.
a very adorable baby. Yeah.
Which makes it feel all the
Yes.
worse.
Yes.
Oh, poor thing.
What's up?
That much. Yeah, we can talk about the text message later.
I know.
Do we just get going?
It's probably
Yeah,
a good
okay.
starter. I kind of
This is her last week in the snow with her little friend. They looked like little Arctic explorers together.
Okay, I think I'm gonna get started. He's gonna, but I don't know. Yeah, yeah.
She's good for the cheeks.
It's just the
Yes.
best.
Very kissable cheeks.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order at 10:02. Before we get into the full meeting agenda for the January 2024 Chicago Plan Commission meeting, I want to quickly provide guidance to those who want to provide testimony on the cases presented for public hearing today. A few of you may have already submitted forms electronically, but for anyone else who may wish to testify before the Plan Commission, please fill out sheets located on the table where you enter the room. Please include your full name, address, if you are for or against the proposal, and if you are here representing yourself or an organization. Please hand your sheets to one of the staff members. People who have completed forms will be called on after each item is presented. Thank you. Out of respect for other speakers, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please line up at the microphone behind me or in front of me today. And to my left, in the order I call your name, and please do not repeat comments that have already been made by previous speakers. The public comment portion of the meeting is not a question and answer session of the staff or the applicant, but an opportunity for attendees to voice their opinions on a particular proposal. Out of respect for others, please do not interrupt or disrupt the speakers. Any individual who disrupts the presentation or any subsequent comment session may be asked to leave the council chambers, or if necessary, may be escorted out by security. We will now call the roll. Commissioner Barclay? Not here. Commissioner Carney? Not here. Commissioner Brumfield? Not here. Commissioner Boatwright?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Present.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Commissioner Dowell? Not here. Commissioner Escareño?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores is here. Commissioner Johnson? Not here. Commissioner La Espalta?
Present?
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons? Not here. Commissioner Murphy?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramirez Rosa? Not here. Commissioner Reyes? Not here. Commissioner Soto?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Cicho Lopez?
He was just here.
I thought I saw him walk in.
He just stepped out.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Esposato? Not here. Commissioner Tillman?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Villegas? Not here. Okay. We will now approve the minutes from the December 21st, 2023 regularly scheduled Plan Commission meeting. The minutes were distributed prior to today's hearing. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission held on December 21st, 2023?
So moved.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Boatright and second by Commissioner Piñeiro. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda.
Abstain.
Thank you. Abstain. Commissioner Escareño.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner Laspata.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto.
Here. Yes. Sorry.
Thank you. Commissioner Tillman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Just a reminder, as we have returned to in-person hearings, we will take public comments for the items on the agenda after each item has been presented. If you have not already done so and you wish to speak on an item, please complete a testimony slip available somewhere in the room. Staff members are available to assist if needed and will collect the forms from you. So I believe we have a deferral, right? The deferral, the applicant has requested a deferral for the item listed on the agenda today as C3. That item is a resolution recommending a proposed ordinance authorizing the disposition of a city-owned land generally located at 2054-58 West Warren Boulevard to 2054-58 West Warren LLC. And this is item 24-003-21, and this is in the 27th Ward. Do I have a motion to defer this item?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner
Yes.
Laspata
Sorry.
and second by
Escareño.
Scareño. Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Escareño.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores. Yes. Commissioner Laspata.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman.
Yes.
Thank you. Item will be deferred. Okay. Next on the agenda are matters submitted in accordance with the Interagency Planning Referral Act. Do I have a motion to approve item number C1, C2, and C3, and C4, under the disposition heading?
So moved, Tillman.
Thank you. Motion by Commissioner Tillman. Do I have a second?
Escareño, second.
Thank you, Commissioner Escareño. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Escareño.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores. Yes. Commissioner Laspata.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto.
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now we will move on to the public hearing presentation portion for matters submitted in accordance with the Lake Michigan and Chicago Lakefront Protection Ordinance and or the Chicago Zoning Ordinance. The first item today is listed as D1, a proposed business plan development submitted by 718 LLC and Westlake Chicago Investors LLC for the property generally located at 1016-20 West Lake Street. The applicant seeks a rezoning of the subject property from the C1-1 Neighborhood Commercial District and C1-2 Neighborhood Commercial to the DX7 Downtown Mixed Use District, and then to a business plan development to allow for the construction of a hotel with 143 keys and a maximum height of 219 feet and 6 inches. The proposal will also include commercial and accessory uses and will have an FAR of 11.5 by utilizing the Neighborhood Opportunity Bonus. This is item 22284, and this is in the 27th Ward. James will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Good morning. For the record, my name is James Gwinner with the Department of Planning and Development. The applicant here appears here today because they are proposing to rezone the subject property from C1-1 Neighborhood Commercial District to the DX7 Downtown Mixed Use District, then to business plan development to allow for the construction of a hotel with approximately 143 keys and 219 feet 6 inches in height with
James,
commercial
is your microphone on?
and accessory. Yes,
Does
it is.
It is? Okay. Can everybody hear? No, right? I think,
Test,
This
test.
yeah.
Try yours.
Try it again.
Test.
Get
It's
closer.
really low.
It-
This microphone is not working.
Do you want me to start over?
Maybe switch. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. For the record, my name is James Gwinner with the
Perfect.
Department of
Yep, yep.
Planning and Development. The applicant appears here today because they're proposing to rezone the subject property from C1-1 Neighborhood Commercial District to the DX7 Downtown Mixed Use District, then to Business Plan Development to allow for the construction of a hotel with approximately 143 keys and 219 feet 6 inches in height with commercial and accessory uses and an overall FAR of 11.5. This is a community area snapshot. The subject site is located in the Westtown community area. The area contains over 67,000 residents and a median household income of over 98,000 per year. Now I will return the presentation over to Richard Clowder, the applicant's attorney, who will further explain the details of the proposal.
Thank you, James. For the record, my name is Rich Clowder. I'm with the law firm of DLA Piper 444 Westlake. I represent the applicant in this matter. I want to first quickly introduce the development team, which features a partnership among New York-based developer Arthur Stern, local landowner, developer, and businessman Errol Stapleton, and their hotel operating and asset managing partner, Jillian Catcher. They're all seated behind me. Also, here today are representatives from M. Moser, the New York-based or international architect, from whom you will hear in a minute in the person of Chris Swartout. This slide in front of you is a very brief snapshot of the proximity of the site to multiple modes of transit. This is located at Lake and Carpenter, literally steps from the Morgan Street stop of the Green Line. Also, there are numerous other modes of transportation in close proximity. The next slide is the context plan, or the site in context. This shows the site. As James mentioned, the property is currently zoned a combination of C11 and C12, and the proposal is to rezone the property to the DX7 and then to business plan development, utilizing the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund bonus to achieve an FAR of 11.5. This will enable the approximately 220-foot tall, 143-key boutique hotel. The next slide is more land use context, including adjacency or showing adjacency to the Fulton Market Landmark District. The following slide, of course, is a series of images showing the pedestrian context from the intersection of Lake and Carpenter Streets. And this slide in front of you is an image which places the mostly unimproved site in context from above. I'd now like to turn the presentation over to Chris Swartout from M. Moser. They are an award-winning international firm that has brought the best worldwide design philosophies to this location and neighborhood. So Chris, if you would take it away, please.
Thanks, Richard. And I had the great pleasure of going to school here in Chicago, so it's great to be back. This is the project index and building program. The first 3 floors are amenity space, 14 floors of hotel, rooftop F&B component, and 8,000 square feet of below-grade infrastructure. We also want to say thank you to DPD, the Chicago city agencies, and all the people at the city agencies who have been super collaborative, helpful, quite frankly, one of the best municipalities to work with in the U.S. This is the perspective of the building. Working with the ownership and development team behind me, we set 3 guiding principles. 1, to be one of the most sustainable buildings in Chicago. 2, to build a building based on circadian principles. And 3, create social impact in the community. We also wanted to create something that was timeless and modern, in context and harmony with the community around it, to build on the excellence of Chicago architecture. This is a view from the elevated train. The site sits very close to the elevated train, and we view the train as kinetic sculpture. We wanted to capture and integrate the energy into the space. There's 3 levels of glass and bluestone cladding that will actually create the sound waves being bounced back away from the building. This is another perspective view of the building. We're layering plants and biophilia on the outside of the building that will be dormant in cold months, but in the vegetative state in the warm months. There is glass that's electrochromatic, which means it has sensor technology that will self-tint where the sun's position is at to decrease the amount of energy in the building to work in tandem with us getting net zero. There's also a film on the glass that only birds can see from 30 feet away that they will fly around the building.
Good job. Thank you. Finally.
This is a view from the east. This is on a lot line condition with the core wall in that area. This is showing a community mural. It's to be determined what that will actually be. This is a generic rendering at this point. All of the planning is in alignment with the guidelines for the Fulton Market Innovation District. This is the ground floor plan. Entrance arrival will be on Carpenter Street, commercial restaurant on Lake. We've been working with CDOT to incorporate 2 new curb cuts that are disability accessible, and there will be new vegetation on the exterior that's in alignment with the Chicago Forestry Plan. This is the 2nd and 3rd floor, which will incorporate a social wellness club, co-working space, and treatment rooms. Generic floor plan, there will be 13 rooms per floor, approximately 380 square feet. A rooftop food and beverage component that is 4 seasons. I'll quickly go through the elevations to show that the building on all elevations is in symmetry with large punch windows. This is showing the datum line or the building in context to the height of the elevated train in the buildings in the surrounding area. Another shot of the scale of the community mural, again, to be determined what that is. The building's thermal envelope is actually quite deep. This helps create energy efficiency. Again, we're shooting for net zero on this building. There is a 68-foot drop-off for valet in front of the building. There is a private alley behind the building. We've set the building back so that there can be unloading and loading in the loading bay in the building. Again, landscaping plan is in alignment with the Chicago Forestry Plan. Materiality of the building, triple glazed glass, bronze, copper, aluminum cladding, the electrochromatic glazing, blue stone, and photovoltaic panels for solar on the roof. This is showing that we are achieving well performance rating so that we have very high quality air, light, water, operational excellence and innovation. We're way over the 100 points, and then we're also shooting for International Living Future Institute net zero carbon. We're focusing on decreasing the amount of carbon used in the materials that will go into the building and decreasing the amount of energy that the building uses. Our project goals are over 175 points, but we're achieving 130 points. There's still design elements to be determined when we go in for permit. These are the introductions of the plan dates and the community board meetings that we've done. This is the traffic study. And I'm going to let the ownership speak to the public benefit.
Or the representative of ownership. And that is that this does detail a summary of the extensive community benefits associated with this project. In addition to the unprecedented scale of sustainability here, there are a number of both construction and permanent jobs that we anticipate creating, a neighborhood opportunity fund payment in excess of $1 million, outreach to and utilization of minority and women-owned businesses, and, as I said, an unprecedented commitment to sustainability and a carbon net zero program. Finally, we'll turn it back over to James for a wrap-up.
Thank you. This is James Quinner with the Department of Planning and Development. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the materials submitted by the applicant and has concluded that the proposal would be appropriate for the following reasons. The proposed development is in compliance with the PD standards and guidelines. It complies with West Loop design guidelines and is in general conformance with the Fulton Market Innovation District Plan. It promotes economically beneficial development patterns and incorporates a high level of sustainable features. It is designed to reinforce urban features in the surrounding area. It includes a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project, and it promotes safe and efficient circulation of pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles, and promotes transit, pedestrian, and bicycle use. Please refer to my staff report for further details on this project and the plans identified here today. Based on the foregoing, the zoning administrator recommends that the application for the establishment of the plan development and zoning map amendment be approved and forwarded to the City Council Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards as such. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And we do have one speaker signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Butler Adams, who's for the proposal.
For the record, my name is Butler Adams. I am in favor of this proposal. There was a meeting on this project a few weeks ago. I missed that, but just from reviewing this and looking at it, it's a very nice design. It's simple, it's sleek, it's kind of elegant. I wish there was a cornice on top of the building to give it a base, shaft, and capital. Otherwise, I think it's fairly decent. I don't think we have any bluestone buildings here in Chicago. And as someone who's been in tourism for the past now 24 years, the hotels are slowly but surely coming back. I mean, after COVID, it took a while. But things are slowly recovering, and this may help. So look forward to seeing it get built. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Adams. Do the commissioners have any questions of the staff or the applicant?
I do.
Commissioner Soto?
Yes. See if this works. So in terms of your participation of minority and women-owned businesses, what is your current plan for that outreach?
Good question. We will obviously work closely with Alderman Burnett in his office. We have not yet selected a general contractor. We don't have financing yet, so it's sort of premature at this point to think about how we, through our general contractor, reach out to other members of the trades. But everything is on the table and will be very, very clear to meet and exceed the 26 and 6 requirements, and will be involved in an extensive community engagement process under the auspices of the Alderman's office.
And a follow-up question as well, what about the professional services? Because you've executed those services now. What does that participation look like?
I don't have a list of that, but I can certainly obtain that and route that through the staff to you.
The architect should know
Yeah,
who their team members
I will
are.
let him know on the design side, sure.
Thank you.
The sub-consultants haven't been retained yet, and that's something we're discussing right now. So thanks for the question, yeah.
So what is your goal? Because in order to engage them, you have to have a goal in mind of what the participation is that you want on the professional service side.
Yeah, I don't think we've identified the percentage yet, but it's a goal to have them included. We haven't got to that stage of selecting the sub-consultants yet, or even interviewing.
So just an overall note, when you're developing a project and those items are important to the development, they are planned out in anticipation. So I would like to have a follow-up and just understand what those goals are for the participation in professional services and the general contractor, because that's how you issue your RFPs and that's how you know who will be participating on your projects.
Yeah, one note, M. Moser is a woman-owned business, so we are that, and then we will include those items in the RFPs that are going out.
Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Is Alderman Burnett here, or anybody from his staff? No. Okay.
Chairwoman,
Yeah. Okay.
just a couple questions.
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you very much for bringing the project to us. It is a genuinely beautiful building that I look forward to visiting. I want to say first off the bat, to see you all incorporating the bird-friendly design, I know that sounds like such a small thing. I know it sounds so niche. Anyone following environmental issues in Chicago knows how incredibly important that is. You got to get all the way to the end of the Sustainable Development Policy to find it. I'm glad you found it. I'm very, very glad that you're doing it. I wondered, because we moved past it pretty quickly, if you could go back to the transportation plan that went into
Sure,
this.
there you go.
Because we talked a little bit about the permanent job, the construction jobs, but I have to assume with everything going on in the building, we're going to have a high number of permanent jobs as well. What does parking look like for staff, or how do we anticipate staff getting to the hotel on a regular basis?
Well, we have the good fortune of being about 150 feet from the L stop. There's also a divvy station located immediately in front of the building, and we're providing a minimum of 20 bike parking spaces within the enclosed building. So we think that a majority of people are going to come, almost everybody is going to come through a combination of either transit or biking. We are not, as you know, providing on-site parking. We don't think that that's necessary. It's not required. It's not desirable. We have accommodated any cars that come to the site with a valet. There's ample valet opportunities. Our traffic consultant, if you like, could speak to that, but he's done some research to identify several locations where we could accommodate valet. So we think that this is just in the vortex of a transit served location, and there aren't going to be any people who are there other than in a transitory measure, other than permanent employees. We don't know the number yet because we don't know all the amenities and how the hotel will be programmed, but we think we've accommodated and been very progressive in our thinking in terms of the transit issues.
Got it. I appreciate it. And the notion is, with the loading zone as well, do we anticipate our trucks coming down Lake and Halsted and then turning onto Carpenter, or what
Chris,
we
do you want to
anticipate?
handle that while I'm finding the slide? Here we go. That's probably as good as it gets. Yeah, there's an interesting condition where we've actually elected to set back our building from the north property line by, is it, I think, 7 feet? And that's because there is a shared alley with the property owner to the north. So what we're able to do is trucks will access the alley from the south and go east down the alley there, and then they'll be able to back in without creating any encumbrance in the alley itself. So again, we don't know how the hotel is exactly going to be programmed, and so the number of trucks per day is still undetermined, but we think we've accommodated it by setting the building back so that there won't be any long-term encroachments in the alley itself. I hope that answers your question, Commissioner.
Either one will do.
Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine that. No, I know what backing into our garage feels like. I got to assume that the alley is wide enough. In this case, you wouldn't be proposing it otherwise. I really appreciate the thoughtful responses.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Boatwright?
Sure, just a couple questions. I know that you are still programming the space, but can you speak to access to community as it relates to the food and beverage space in the hotel? And then a little bit about the rooftop amenity. Is it open to community, or is it specific for the hotel guests?
Do you want to handle both, or should we have Jillian come up and answer the first? What's your thought? Jillian, do you want to answer the first question? We're going to ask Jillian to come up. She's part of the team and is the hotel savant. Go ahead.
Also, just wanted to say I love the question about diversity. My company is woman-owned, so I'm going to be holding everybody very accountable too, but we'll get it on paper. Yes, so there will be 2 food and beverage outlets in the hotel. The first will be on one of the 3 floors in what we're calling the amenity space. The second will be on the rooftop. Ideally, both will be open to the public. There was some discussion about the one in the amenity space being guest only. But for sure, at least one of them will be open to the public. You can be certain that if we're trying to make this economically viable, we want everybody in the community to come on in.
Got it. And a second question for the mural. I know you all haven't determined a design yet. Is there a commitment to work with a local artist for the design of the mural?
100%. In fact, we'd like to do outreach to DCASE to see what kind of people they can send our way and what kinds of ideas they have that would be consistent with the character of the neighborhood.
Okay, and last question,
Yeah,
promise.
go right
Can you
ahead.
speak to your anticipated timing? I know financing you're still securing, but ideally, what's your timing for construction start, completion?
We
et
talked
cetera?
about that last night internally. We think that we'd like to start as soon as this summer. It's about a 16 to 18th month construction process, so we would be online 2 to 2.5 years from now, ideally.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments by the commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Piñeiro?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Very nice project. Question about the, you mentioned in your remarks that the site is mostly unimproved, but I do see in some of the renderings, or at least some of the aerials, that there are some structures, I believe, to the east of the project that seem to be demolished or are expected to be demolished. Is that the case? Can you confirm? And if so, what is?
Yes, I believe, so Mr. Stapleton, who's a member of the development team, owns that property. I believe it's improved, and Errol can confirm, with an approximately 3-story, not historic at all building that would be demolished, and that site on the easternmost portion of the property would be included in as part of the development site.
Is there an image that reflects that, just to?
That's probably as good as you're I wish I could point, I don't have a pointer here, but on the far east or to the right of the site, you'll see that shaded in building there, and that will come down, but the other ones will remain undisturbed.
So it's one of the townhomes, correct?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
I just have a quick just question on the trending of boutique hotels. Could you talk a little bit about maybe the saturation of hotel rooms in Chicago and where the market is going? And in 2 years from now, where do you see this trend going? Only because I think there's reports that there is an oversaturation of
Sure.
rooms. So how is the market, and what does that mean for a city like Chicago?
Sure. I would contend that there's not an oversaturation of rooms. Chicago is just one of the markets that has yet to fully return to 2019 levels, but from pre-COVID. And that's good news, because that means there's still upside to be had. A lot of the leisure markets, Florida, there's no more upside. We're at 2019 and we're past it. Chicago, it's not quite there, but we're really, really encouraged, especially Fulton Market. We've been doing some reviews with some of the biggest hotel companies, Marriott, Hilton, and asked them what their study was of saturation in this submarket, Fulton Market. They both said that they have so much demand, they don't have anywhere to put people. So I think in this case, this submarket can use another hotel. I'm staying at the Hoxton tonight, sold out. The Emily, sold out. And these are hotels that aren't even part of those large loyalty programs. We're anticipating that this hotel, I think honestly 80% occupancy on average is within reach. So I think we'll find that we think about it, and I guess the whole point is sub-districts versus Chicago overall. Fulton Market, absolutely in need with all the building going on.
And just a final question, just for traveling public. I know that boutique hotels can be very focused on certain demographics. Is this a hotel that's going to be, pretty broad range accommodations for families as well as individuals? We know that this is a hot, neighborhood in terms of the trending of just a lot of oversaturation of young single people, but we certainly want to make sure that the developments going into these areas are also about families and the makeup of who we are as a city. So can you talk a little bit more about your room capacity, your pricing, and how that is also, something that fits a traditional neighborhood? We know that this is up and coming, but we want to make it accessible to all people. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the goal for this hotel is to not be at a luxury price point. We want to make sure that we can have a wide swath of the community, traveling community, able to stay there. Economically, you want the business traveler in the middle of the week, and you want the families and the leisure traveler over the weekend. So we have every incentive to make sure that it has broad appeal. In terms of size of the rooms, it's actually incredible. We're talking about rooms that are over 500 square feet. That's twice the size of the standard room at the Hoxton. So you could absolutely put a way bed in there or a couch in there. And I have a 3 and a 5-year-old, so I would stick my kids on that roll-away couch. I would sleep in the bed, and you'd still have room for desk space and ample space to kind of live in the room. So between that and the amenity space, which is going to be wellness-oriented, I think wellness used to be a niche, but now everybody's concerned with how they're living, and so we think that's going to really be a broad appeal as well. Everything from I'm passive and maybe I just want a massage, all the way through to things that are a little bit more niche. I think there'll be something for everyone.
Thank you. And just to the chairwoman, I really take to heart the comments by Commissioner Soto, and I think we've talked in the past that projects coming to this board do need to come prepared with their goals and objectives for MBE, WBE. Certainly a beautiful project, but I think it's just really important in terms of what we're trying to do here in Chicago. So would really appreciate working with our team here at the city to make sure that that continues to be a priority. Thank you.
And we'll certainly take note of that, and we'll try to follow up with the team about specific percentages once you sit down and figure them out. I mean, it's good to hear that you're already obviously concerned because you are a women-owned business. But yeah, it's throughout the process, and we do want to see those numbers sooner than later. So please come back to us for that. I do have a question about the sustainability goals, which are very ambitious. I believe we haven't seen any project like that before. Can you talk a little bit more about how that came about and how that's financially viable for a hotel?
Yeah, a little bit about Moser. We're one of the pioneers for net zero and WELL certification on the globe. But the ownership team really wanted to focus on creating a sustainable product that exceeded the climate action plan goals of Chicago. And being that we're on the vanguard of some of these efforts, we do a lot of projects with Google, and then they allowed us to take over all the learnings we've had over the past decade and implement them into different buildings. So a lot of the learnings from that are being put here. In terms of economic viability, we're actually delivering the building at budget neutral for net zero, which would be a longer discussion technically that Rich told me to avoid today, which I'm happy to come back and explain. But a lot of this is down to the thermal envelope being a certain size, which keeps the cooling in the summertime in and the heat in the wintertime in, and doesn't let it out. And then how we're using that innovative glass, which allows the building to use advanced algorithmic building management system to control through sensors all of the different infrastructure. So those are like 2 reasons.
Points. Okay. Great. Very interesting. Looking forward to see it built.
This will be the first ILFI net zero building in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not just a hotel?
Building.
Yes. Wow. Great. Did anybody have?
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm glad that we were talking about the market. I do have another follow-up question on the market. Can you please give us some perspective about the market for hotels of this nature, in particular the financing market for this type of project?
Yes, I'm glad you're asking me this year and not last year. It's looking up. Complete transparency, 2023 was a hard year for financing for hotels with the interest rates what they were. You were having a difficult time in terms of buyers and sellers kind of meeting on a price. Now what we're seeing is lenders, really much more excited to dip their toe into the water. Hotels are always a fairly safe bet for them. So that wasn't specific to hotels, it was just in general with interest rates. But we're already seeing a lot more enthusiasm. I just read this morning, people are hoping for rates below 4% by the end of the year, to God's ears. So I think that we'll be well positioned to gather what we need this year for the eventual opening in 2025. But if you had asked me last year, I would have been more cautious with the answer.
Thank you. No, that's good news. I'm aware. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, with that, I will go ahead and ask for a motion. Do I have a motion on a proposed business plan development submitted by 718 LLC and Westlake Chicago Investors LLC for the property generally located at 1016-20 Westlake Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
So moved, Commissioner Laspada.
Thank you, Commissioner Laspada. Do I have a second motion? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Boatright. We will now do a vote. Where's my sheet? Oh, here. Commissioner Boatright?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Escareño?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Laspada?
Yes?
Thank you. And I do have a recusal from Commissioner Lyons on this item. Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Piñeiro?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Soto? Thank you. Did we lose Commissioner Cicho Lopez? Did he step out? Yeah, okay. Commissioner Tillman?
Yes.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? No? Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Congrats to the team. It's a great project. We're looking forward to it. Okay. The next item today is listed as D2, a proposed residential business plan development submitted by 420 North May Property LLC for the property generally located at 420 North May Street. The applicant is proposing to rezone the site from M2-3 Light Industry District to a DX-5 Downtown Mixed Use District. Prior to establishing the plan development, the rezoning would allow the construction of a 575-foot tall building with 587 dwelling units, ground floor retail uses at grade landscape and open space area, and 444 accessory vehicular parking spaces with accessory and incidental uses. A 3.1 FAR bonus will be taken, and the overall FAR of the plan development will be 8.1. This is application number 22178, and this is also in the 27th Ward. Fernando Espinosa will provide the context overview and present the proposed plan.
Good afternoon. Fernando Espinosa with Department of Planning and Development. With me today are members of the development team who will be available to answer any questions from the commission after the presentation. The site is located in the southern fringe of the West Town community area and is within the boundaries of the Fulton Market Innovation District. Total population for the West Town community area, based on CMAP data, gives 87,781 people. 63.6% are white, non-Hispanic. 22.2% are Hispanic. 6.6% are black, non-Hispanic. And 5.4% are Asian. The median age is 32.7. I will now turn over the presentation to Mariah DeGrino, who represents the applicant. Ms. Mariah?
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you, commissioners. We are pleased to be here. My name is Mariah DeGrino with the law firm of DLA Piper. We represent the applicant in the matter. I'm joined by Jason Buckberg of Crescent Heights, the developer, Tom Pope from HPA, the project architect, and Peter Lemon from Kimley Horn, the traffic consultant, and also joined by Jeff Dowd from Cohen Resnick, the financial consultant on the affordability side. As staff outlined, the proposed development is a residential project consisting of 587 dwelling units with ground floor retail and co-working space and 440 parking spaces on site. The site is currently zoned M23 Light Industry District as shown on the map on the screen, but it is located within the city's expanded Downtown D district. The applicant proposes to rezone the site to the DX5 district and utilize FAR bonus to achieve an overall FAR of 8.1. The project site is an irregular shaped parcel on the north side of Kinsey between Racine and May It is bounded on the north by the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad tracks, which is an elevated rail line sitting atop an embankment. At this point, I will turn it over to Tom Pope from HPA to discuss the plans for the project.
Thank you, Mariah, and good morning again, everyone. Thank you for hearing us today. For the record, my name is Tom Pope with HPA. I'm a partner there, and I have the pleasure of walking you through some of the design and inspiration and vision for the project. In terms of how we approach design, we really like to look at the context and look at the history of the site and really understand some of the influences that shape the design. And so one thing that is really clear, we've practiced in Fulton Market for the last 25 years, and we've been really excited to see the evolution of design in the market. It's knowing that its roots were industrial architecture, but seeing that it's really more of an incubator for innovation and modern design, and we've been happy to be a part of that. When Jason with Crescent Heights approached me 3 years ago almost with the site, and we walked it and talked about some ideas there, one thing was clear, that this was really a special site and really demanded something special there. And so I hope that what we show you today gets you excited, because we're certainly excited about it. And I'll make sure to touch on some of the influences on the history and the context that influenced our design. This slide is just showing some of the guidelines that we need to comply with, both the West Loop and Fulton Market Innovative District Plan. We'll touch on a little bit later. Overall context plan here, you can see our site is the gray box with the red dot in the upper kind of center of the slide. We're bound by Hubbard Street on the north, Racine on the west, May on the east, and Kinsey on the south. We're in the FMID, but we're outside of the historic district, and we are within half mile of numerous L stations, CTA and Metra hubs. Just some existing context around the site. These are a little bit outdated because there are some construction immediately adjacent to us now, but as you're all aware, Fulton Market is undergoing kind of a building boom right now, and so the only really developed building next to us right now is on the bottom right-hand corner. That's the Trammell Crow Commercial Building. And then looking onward onto the site, right now there's a 3-story existing building. It's not a historic building, but it is contextual, and we do plan to keep it, and I'll touch on that later on the deck. But the balance of the site is a parking lot. Just kind of looking at the contextual massing here, this is a view. Our proposed project is number 15, and it just gives you an idea of some of the developments that have either been constructed or are approved and a pending construction in the district. One thing to just kind of point out, in our particular building, we kind of went out of our way really to look at the massing in a precise way where we try to push it away as far as possible from Hubbard and in alignment with the our neighbor to the east, which is the closest nearest building. You can see in some of the developments further east, the setbacks are a little bit less. So overshot, looking back at our project kind of in the background here with some of the development in the foreground, you could see really development coming from Lake Street, moving north to Hubbard is substantial. Some significantly tall developments that we're trying to tie in with. These next series of slides are just showing more of the overall context just from a little bit of a lower perspective here. So you can see the red diagram is our proposed building. Here's Lake on the right here, and just see some of the development that is slated or constructed. Another shot looking to the northwest. A view looking west here. You could see Hubbard is on my right here. And Hubbard on the bottom here with a Trammell Crow building in the center. So as I mentioned, there's a 3-story building that's currently on the site. And it was built in 1930s. Best we can tell, it was light manufacturing. It's gone through a bunch of phases in its life. It's been remodeled numerous times. It had some additional ads on the sides of the building, mechanical equipment and whatnot kind of slapped onto the facade. And so, but we still would love to keep it, and our ambition here is really to clean up the building, restore it, beautify it to its original condition, but at the same time, we're going to open up the storefront, because right now May Street is really if you've ever walked up and down May Street in that neighborhood, it's not the most friendliest street. And so our plan here is to open up the storefront and allow it to become a little bit more vibrant and transparent. This slide just really shows some of the thought. As I mentioned before, we like to ground our design in really history and context of the site. So interesting enough, the Racine at some point in the past was known as Ann Street, and it actually bisected the site. So we thought, what a great thing to tap off of, and as a way to organize the partie of our massing, and also indicate where the entry of the site is, of the development itself. Some of the other things we thought were instrumental for our design was the fact that we're straddled by two major rail lines. And so we like this idea of momentum, something that could really impact and influence the articulation of our facade. And we're really interested in landscape relief and how that interacts with the design of our building. This slide shows some preliminary massing that we had originally presented to Neighbors of River West, along with the aldermen and DPD early on. And in collaboration with them, the preferred scheme on the far right is what we decided to further. It seemed to have the best balance of height and proportion, really embrace the idea of opening up the grade areas for public benefit and for landscape zones. And as I mentioned before, really kind of focuses on setbacks, light and air, in terms of really getting a more slender, taller building versus a shorter, kind of more massive building. Project timeline, this was introduced in May of 2023. We had a number of original intake meeting back in July of 22. From there, we met with various stakeholders, DPD, Committee on Design, Neighbors of River West, West Central Association, NOW, et cetera. And for the most part, had very good feedback, and we appreciate their criticism and their direction on this, because it really helped us excel the design to a better place. Some of the high-level feedback that we received would include things like exploring and developing the green spaces around the entry zones, creating an iconic crown to the building, consolidating all the parking and loading to maximize the sidewalk around three sides, increasing the parking count, really focusing on the dog park zones in a sensible manner inside the building, and explore a way to reduce, if possible, some of the building height. So in this slide, it shows you really the evolution from where we started on the left and how it evolved, with each of the groups' feedback. You can see the kind of major reveal in between the taller portion of the massing and the step massing, and that kind of coincides with the entry in that historic Ann Street that I mentioned. And incorporating the crown element on the far right, incorporating a little bit more detail based on the neighbors' feedback. And we ended up with a base that was a little bit more contextual and less, I'll call, modernist, which I think was a good move, because it definitely does tie in a nice way with the existing building and some of the other 3 to 5 story contextual buildings in the market. Looking at the site plan, again, we're bound by May, Kinsey, Racine, and Hubbard to the north. And as I mentioned before, the majority of the massing of the tower is set back in a way where we're in alignment with our direct neighbor, Trammell Crow, but we're also set back in a way where it's more or less centered in the site itself to allow to maximize natural, light and air corridors and views. And as I mentioned, really focus the massing up high in the building so that we can open up the grade areas below for public park space, greenery. The other focus of our site planning was to push all of the loading and parking off to the north here. This is part of our property, but it kind of acts as an internal alley We have a gracious turnaround here, drop-off zone for vehicular access, and all of the trash and loading is hidden within the building. On the right here, this gray tone area, that represents the existing building, the extent of it of which we're planning on keeping, along with the existing water tower. Here, in working with CDOT, we were able to remove several curb cuts from the development and just consolidate them on the north here, which gives it a nice continuity between the landscape and sidewalk and connectivity around Racine. In terms of the landscape concept, with a building like this, with its scale and its size and level of articulation, we want the landscape zone, essentially the front yard, really to be subdued, tranquil, relaxing. We don't want to overdo it. We want it to be a welcoming space. We want the materials to be natural, friendly. We don't want to have a lot of barriers here. And so we've organized it in a very simple and clean way. There's a little route here that gets you from Kinsey to the main entry to the building that I'll point out in further slides. And there's also some greenery that we've incorporated inside the building and around the building to create a little bit of a respite and a buffer for our residents. The primary amenity for this building is up at the 6th floor. We chose this because we like having the amenity close enough to grade that you still have eyes on the park, eyes on the market. We think that's important. At the same time, it affords us to maximize the area around the taller portion of the building. So we envision it, it's a lot of square footage. We envision it with a lot of different programmatic elements, a pool, seating areas, and maybe a small kind of park, play zone for kids, cabanas, grill stations, things of that nature. Looking at the first floor plan, as I mentioned, vehicular access is off to the north here. As you'll notice as we walk up the floor plans, really our focus was how do we disguise the parking, right? We're always trying to find ways, how do you activate the frontage of these buildings in a way where you're not staring at a garage? We think that's very important at this scale, especially in this neighborhood, especially in a 0 to call it 5 or 6 story building plant that we've created. So we've brought a lot of leasing, retail, amenities, bike amenities. We're thinking maybe a small gallery space, maybe it has some affiliation with the mural to the north here. It's still kind of TBD, but surrounding the parking areas and the loading by active space. There is a full level of parking below grade. And then as we move back up to the 2nd floor, and I'll just kind of pass through these quickly, parking, active residential around it. This is the existing building that we're planning on turning into more of a townhome style brick lofts. So additional parking flanked with residential. We're looking at a mixture of micros, studios, 1, 2s, 3s, and 4 bedroom units. You could see this mix isn't by any means final, but it's as close as we can get it at this point. One of the interesting things about the base of our building too, and I'll point it out when we get to the renderings, is that we're trying to terrace the actual massing of the base itself. So we want to hold this street wall that's kind of anchored by the existing building, but we want it to somewhat disintegrate as you move up, just to create a little bit more interest in the facade. Moving up to the 5th floor, additional parking. Our 6th floor is our amenity space, which I pointed out, which also has an interior amenity zone in the pink. And now we start to get into the terracing floor plans, which slowly from the right to the left fall away as you go up into the height of the tower. Units are flanked by a common area hallway, like I mentioned, a mixture of different units. We're incorporating balconies at the corners of the massing to just help with articulation and a nice transition to each facade. 44th floor will have an additional sky amenity with its own outdoor space. That's at the top of the stepped volume. And then additional penthouse levels from 45 to 51 and screen mechanical up at the top. In terms of materiality, we're taking cues from the market. Obviously, there's a lot of industrial grit. It doesn't mean we need to literally copy it, but we do want to respect it. And so we like the idea of masonry as a material with some of these kind of steel and dark bronzed elements to create depth and richness to the facade. And we like that also because we can play off of some of the modernist materials of the taller elements in the building. Here's some of the elevations. You can see how this all comes together. The primary kind of massing at the corner here with the reveal that breaks it from the step sections of the towers. The partie is very traditional in the sense of a base, middle, and top. We think that's important here. The base is really dictated by the existing building as a datum to help influence the balance of our masonry around our building. The center area articulated with these kind of bronze slab edge covers and balconies that turn the corner. And the center, the taller volume here, really we're excited about because the idea here is it's really this kind of kinetic idea that plays off of the rail line and the movement of transportation around us. And so we have a series of faceted glass elements that project out and create this nice texture on the elevations. Turning around the corner here, north elevation is symmetrical with some additional brick screening at some of the blank end of the garage that faces the embankment. There was some discussion in the group community meeting about make an attempt to reduce the height, and so we worked with the aldermen, and we came up with this scheme, which I think works really well. On the right, we made a reduction of about 40 feet from the original design, but we were able to keep the proportion and the scale of the design, I think, in a nice way. These are enlarged elevations of some of the elements that I pointed out. On the right here, you can see this is the scope of the existing building. As it turns a corner, we wanted to add a little bit of a glass reveal to really help with the transition to the newer construction masonry of the base. This is the existing facade from here to here. It's a little bit of a mixture. It's your classic turn of the century brick warehouse building. The difference here is we plan to open up these storefront zones, but we're going to do it in a way where it's consistent with the architecture in the higher levels of the building. So I feel when you walk past this building, I think you're really not going to know the difference. And the benefit is it's now connected with the sidewalk and it's active. It's not such a dark, inactive space. This area here is new construction, but again, will be detailed in masonry, and that's our garage entry that goes all the way through to the other side. And here's that embankment along Hubbard. So here you can see it all coming together in a full rendering. We really focused on the richness of the masonry detailing. Depth of the facade we think is really important. You can kind of see here, this is a little bit of a steel pavilion that greets you as you're dropped off to the building and leads you into the entry. And at the same time, it helps separate some of the landscape zones around the more taller elements of the building. Here you can see why this is really important to have this datum. Really connects with some of the other buildings in the district. Same issue here, we just wanted to show you the difference between the original proposed design and the reduced current design. Some enlarged zones of the renderings as we kind of turn the corner. This is the park area that I spoke to, the masonry detailing. You can see we're going to bring a lot of depth and richness in some of the detailing that we're really excited about. Turning the corner, this is the main vehicular access and drop-off zone. This is this kind of 4-sided in the round glass lobby with some really rich column caps and some exposed kind of charred wood soffits here to really kind of keep your eyes on the lower sections of the building. This is a shot of the existing building again, and as it turns the corner and ties in with the newer construction masonry elements. And then looking back from the corner of May and Hubbard, again, here you can see the existing building, the new structure that houses the garage, and then the tower beyond, some of the other buildings in the background to give you an idea of how it fits with its context. And then we're really excited about the night views of this building because of the lantern effect up at the top. We're really excited about how that's going to act as a signpost for the building. I'll kind of briefly skip through here. These are just blow-up details of some of the regions around the building that just show a little bit more detail. That's at the entry. This is at the stepped facade. You can see we're just bringing a high level of materiality here. This is at the faceted zones. And the interesting thing too about the faceted zones that it does contribute to the sustainability design of it, because it does actually help with control heat load on the building, given the western sun is going to be blocked during certain times of the day on the most broadest elevation. That's a detail of the crown at the top of the building. And these are these are diagrams that just really show compliancy with the various design guidelines, much of which I've already touched on. But we are in full compliance with the guidelines here. So I'm just going to skip through these. We can certainly come back to these if we want to dive into any of these points. One of the interesting things I will touch on is in the Chicago zoning ordinance, in the West Loop design guidelines, there's some mention about thinner structures, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. I think it is important to have thinner, taller structures versus shorter, more massive developments, just because of the nature of high-density neighborhoods. I feel like it tends to be, it leads to a better public benefit if we're allowed to do that. Programmatic section here, just showing the program from the grade up to the crown. In terms of sustainable design, we're going to we're going to meet a minimum of 100 points with the Chicago Sustainable Guidelines, but realistically, I think we're going to be closer to 120 or 130 after reviewing this with my team. Much of it will come from the transportation credits, but there are other opportunities that we can pursue, such as energy reduction, exceeding the stormwater ordinance, native landscaping, green roof, bike parking, et cetera. And as well as bird-friendly glazing, we will be complying with that ordinance. We did a quick shadow study to look at the impact of the massing and the shadows. And as suspected, the thinner and the taller you can make the massing, the better off you are, the less shadow impact you have on the surrounding site. We will be complying with the stormwater management ordinance and have worked with CDOT, identifying Kinsey as a stormwater and sanitary inlets, and the little blue box on the top there is a potential underground detention storage. The other thing to note is a good portion of our site, because the basement is kind of more straddled behind the corner tower of the building, is potentially not fully undisturbed. There will be some excavation, but it is potentially a good opportunity for water retention, given that there's no building below it. And I think at this point I'm going to turn over to Mariah.
Thank you, Tom. So as this slide demonstrates, we are providing 20% affordable units on site. I will say at least 20% because we do understand that as a minimum, that is a floor that we will achieve and seek to overachieve. In terms of numbers, we are providing 119 affordable units on site. You can see the unit breakdown by unit type in both of the charts here, as well as a unit breakdown by type and by AMI AMI levels as well. As Fernando noted and as Tom noted as well, the site is located in the Fulton Market Innovation District, which is in the portion of it north of Lake Street. In 2021, the FMID plan was updated to address a number of issues, but including to establish a goal of providing 30% affordability in projects. In addition, it acknowledged that public assistance would be most likely be needed for that to achieve that additional 10%. And it encouraged the extension of the Kinsey TIF, which was then extended, and also stated that the city would encourage developers to apply for TIF. So, to that end, the developer has worked extensively with the Department of Planning and with the Department of Housing to craft a framework that is, frankly, a little bit more rigorous than the framework that existed prior to this project, to ensure that there is continued discussion and collaboration with DOH and DPD to determine whether additional affordable units can be provided, whether they can be funded with FMID funds, whether the developer can find other funds for that, quite frankly. But an important feature here in the language that was discussed and you see in the plan development is the city's very firm commitment to make those FMID funds available for the project, and for us to continue a discussion with DOH and DPD as to the amount of those funds, the availability of the funds, and whether the project can accept those funds and use those funds to provide additional affordable units. Additional public benefits are there is, as Tom touched on, at grade, you can see here in the foreground of this photo, this rendering, the front lawn of the project is going to be designated as publicly accessible open space. That's 3,750 square feet. The project will be making a contribution of $5.3 million through the FAR bonus payment. $250,000 will be contributed to CDOT for at-grade crossings. There will also be the industrial corridor conversion fee that will be paid as a result of this project. As I mentioned, 119 affordable units, at least 119 affordable units will be provided on site, and the developer will continue working with DOH and DPD to increase affordability. With that TIF funding, DOH making that commitment for TIF fundings. The project will strive to achieve the 26%, 6% MBE, WBE participation, and 50% residency hiring on construction. Commissioner DeSoto, I will preempt your question about the participation. We are also at a stage that is too premature. We don't know who the general contractor will be. For a project of this size, I would expect the general contractor would be a sizable contractor that should have this capacity in-house and well-versed in the city's requirements, and we would expect that of the contractor. In terms of professional services, again, we're at a stage where they haven't started having those discussions. HPA obviously is the project architect. They are not a women certified business. They do have approximately 50% of their staff are women architects. And then, of course, we heard you on your questioning for the prior matter and would agree with that. We need to plan for this in advance and plan to have those discussions before we're actually having them. So we would endorse that. Estimated construction jobs are about 1,400. Again, it's a pretty sizable project. So thank you. We're here to answer any questions you have. We appreciate your consideration of this matter. And at this point, I will turn the chair over to Fernando to provide the department's recommendations.
For the record, Fernando Espinoza with the Department of Planning and Development. The Department of Planning and Development has reviewed the project materials submitted and has concluded that this proposal is appropriate for this site and supports this application for the following reasons. The proposed development is in compliance with the plan development standards and guidelines. The proposal is in compliance with the West Loop design guidelines and is in general conformance with the Fulton Market Innovation District. The proposal is designed to reinforce desirable urban features found within the surrounding area. The proposal ensures a level of amenities appropriate to the nature and scale of the project. The project is also designed to promote this pedestrian interest, safety, and comfort. Finally, please refer to the department's staff report for further details of the proposal. Based on the foregoing, it is the recommendation of the zoning administrator and the Department of Planning that the application for 420 North May should be approved, and the recommendations to the City Council, Committee on Zoning, Landmark, and Building Standards be passed as recommended. This concludes the department's presentation. Staff and the development team are available to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. We do have a couple speakers signed up to speak on this item. First speaker is Mr. Butler Adams for the proposal, and the second speaker is Mr. George Blakemore.
Yes, for the record, my name is Butler Adams. I am in favor of this proposal. I've been a big fan of this project since the application first dropped, and I've been following Crescent Heights for a while because they did the tall building NEMA on Indiana and Roosevelt that was approved at 829 but came out to be 896. So I'm really in favor of this project. One of my disappointments with it is a height reduction, and I think that's very silly for the city that invented skyscrapers and built skyscrapers. That just because a few neighbors across Hubbard complain about the height of the building, especially when this is supposed to be like DX zoning. My understanding is that DX zoning technically has no height limit, so I don't know why the height of this building was brought down. And it was mentioned that taller and thinner buildings allow more light and air to circulate, but this building has now been scrunched down. Still a beautiful project, but that's one of my disappointments. Another thing is the number of parking spaces was increased by about 100 from the Committee on Design meeting to the public meeting back in August. And I mean, we always talk about traffic and congestion in this area, and I don't see why adding more parking in this project is a good thing. Otherwise, you know, it's a wonderful and beautiful project. I am tired of a lot of the boomers in the city dumbing down these projects. There was a meeting just on Tuesday that lasted 3.5 hours for Old Town, complaining about height and density in the city that created it. You live in a city. It's a little bit frustrating, but otherwise, I like this project, and I'm very much looking forward to it, and I hope the alderman reconsider some of the height. There's nothing yet in this neighborhood that really stands out visually, and I would like that to happen. There's no visual landmark that stands out yet. I'm going back to New York in a week, and Brooklyn has its own skyline. Queens has its own skyline. Right now, there's nothing in Fulton Market that visually stands out, and I hope that in the future, there aren't that many spaces left that changes. We have something great. This is a good project, and I look forward to it, and I hope the height can go back up, and I'm saying this to you, Alderman. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Yes, my name is George Blakemore, and I object to this project. What's your reason for objecting, Mr. Blakemore? Because the developer, I'm wanting to ask this developer questions. How many black people gonna be working on that project? Also, will these apartments or homes up there, will they be affordable to poor black people? Affordable? Well, Mr. Blakemore, why do you always bring up the race card? Because it exists. I got eyes, and I see most of the people here don't look like me. And I'm not hoodwinked because they got an alderman that look like me, and because they got Miss Sierra up there. No, 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 no. I'm playing the race card with these retail buildings, stores that you're gonna have here. How many of them will be black vendors, black business people opening up their business there? You know why I can ask these questions? Because you come in the public domain. You might have private development, but you in the public domain. And that's why I can address these issues. I want to ask this Alderman. He doesn't have, it's not a question and answer session. And a few minutes ago, some kind of noise came in. Was that the indication of telling this gentleman to keep quiet? When he comes in with me, I'm going to continue to speak, but I'm not going to be abusive, and I'm not going to let you bully me. These questions should be answered first. Economic development. No community left behind. The engineer, You're going to be plenty of jobs, professional jobs going to be there, lawyers and businessmen, architects. I want to see people like me that's working there. I can always play the race card because it's played on us. I can just look and see how many black people are here. And then because you have a black alderman, that doesn't mean nothing to me. I want the money you see to come to my people. And I have every right to speak on the behalf of the black community because I'm black, identifiable black. So I will be seated. The ancestors heard me, and when you was talking outside, Mr. Blakemore, you're a little petty. You were talking about this court reporter. Wherever, any jobs, hiring court reporters or anybody, I want to see my people working. It's good to see her working, but when I come into these meetings, I want to see my people working, and keep me from playing the race card. You know the way you can do that? It gives good service contracts and jobs to black people. You're doing it for the sanctuary and the new Americans, the refugees. Why not your citizen? God bless you, Mr. Blakemore. Why do you show up? I've already, boom, 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 boom. Then you didn't sit him down, but you want me to be seated. The ancestors appreciate me. Thank you. See, he went longer. He's black and I'm black, but we bring two different perspectives for that project.
Thank you, Mr. Blakemore.
Yeah, here, thank you. I'm made for this.
Do the commissioners have any questions of the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Boatwright?
Yeah, a couple questions, one comment and one question. I really love how you incorporated the existing building and creatively incorporated with the new design. I have a question more on your timing, and I know in terms of financing, you guys are still securing it, but can you speak to your estimated timing to begin construction completion, et cetera?
I think at this point, I think this is the mic that doesn't work. Thank you. At this point, we all know the market conditions are not ideal. I think at this point we would estimate we're about 12 to 18 months out from construction. Hopefully 12 as opposed to 18. We also have existing tenants in the buildings that will have to manage sequencing the terminations of those leases as the market conditions continue to improve. So again, about 12 to 18 months is the current best guess.
Thank you.
Commissioner Laspata, followed by Commissioner Piñeiro.
Thank you so much. There's a lot, very sincerely, to like in the project. I really appreciate the work you're doing around affordability. I particularly appreciate you including the income grading for the various units. It shows that people have been listening to our colleague Wacalda Reyes, and it is showing up in people's presentations. Really appreciate that. Again, like going back to the bird-friendly design, great. I did want to ask two things. One related to the publicly accessible and green spaces. How did we think about the design on there? Because there's a certain consistency where we're leaning into passive recreational spaces rather than active recreational spaces. And I have a growing concern, like when we do create family-sized units, which is great, how are we creating recreational and open spaces that will fit the needs of the full demographics of the building? Does that make sense as a question?
It absolutely makes
Okay.
sense as a question. I'm going to ask Tom to come up here and kind of talk about the evolution of the open space, the ground level open space you mentioned. You started with that. There's definitely been an evolution, I think, from passive, more active to passive, and that's the result of some feedback that we heard through the community process. But I'd like to have Tom kind of speak to the overall package of amenity spaces and open spaces within the building and the site, because I think that will get more at your question about how are we meeting the needs of the families that are going to live in this building.
And if you could also go to that slide for reference to the site plan. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, so appreciate the question. You know, one of the things that we've been working with a lot of developers is how do you address the need for public park space on a private development? And obviously, there's always some back and forth with that. What's enough? What's too little, right? It's important to note that on this project, we have about 10,000 square feet of open to sky public domain space, which is about 15% of the overall site area. So when we look at that, you know, we look at that quantity of space, how do we design it? And so this is where we came up with the idea of the Great Lawn, because we think it is versatile, it's flexible, it allows the public to use it of any age, of any demographic, kids alike. You know, it's great it's big enough that you can toss a ball around or you can just have a picnic. It's not stringent enough where you just have to use it for one particular use. And so that's kind of what I meant when I said we wanted to keep it subdued and tranquil. Not that we won't look at programming these spaces, you know, in the future. Once the building is occupied, I can imagine these spaces as being an extension, not just used for the public, but a way for the public and the tenants, obviously alike, to enjoy the space. So there is nothing in particular specific that we're planning, other than we're just trying to make it as open and as flexible as possible.
and I appreciate the thoughtful response. And I would only say, and I guess we're setting the table for like the next section coming up, because when it comes to recreational space, and I have like a 16-month-old at my house who's whispering in my ear right now, and she's saying universal use doesn't mean that it works particularly well for anyone. And I'm hoping that as we get into this, we're going to think about what works for particular groups. For instance, if we want this to be a great lawn that we want children to run around on, you might even consider like even a 2-foot fence, because you have a lot of street traffic that's going to be going around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's always a struggle, right? How do you create a public space, but you don't create barriers at the same time? But that's why we have a significant amount of additional green space on our property. You know, it's not public, but it is serving the tenants of the building, and with the specific goal of being flexible enough to suit their needs. And the demographic we're going to get in this building, they're all over the place. They're going to be young kids out of school, young families, empty nesters. You know, Fulton Market is really kind of a melting pot. And so we imagine that type of a demographic will be able to serve easily with our amenity spaces that we have elsewhere in the building, one way or another.
Okay, I appreciate it. The other thing I was going to ask is, again, like related to the transportation planning. I'm curious how we're thinking about the ins and outs of this, because really we're, as close as we are to public transit, we're also bordered in this property by rail lines on 2 sides. Streets that, particularly when we think of the cumulative impact, and again, we're going to talk about it in a second, cumulative impact of development, the challenge of micro-mobility, moving away from cars, thinking about how pedestrians and cyclists will interact with this space. Have we thought about, or are you encouraging CDOT, for instance, to think about cycling infrastructure adjacent to your property? I know that I think I was seeing that we're supposed to see our cyclists entering on May. May isn't like a really fantastic street for cycling at the moment, and I think it's going to get trickier with the development that we're adding.
Yeah, I love that question. I'm a cyclist too, and I'm always looking for better routes to get around Fulton Market, because there really aren't any.
Yeah.
You know, part of the initiative there was the continuity of the sidewalk. I think is important. Obviously, you're not riding your bikes around on the sidewalk, but it does definitely help with access if you're on foot and you need to park a bike in the building and you're not crossing a million driveways. And so that's why we have the bike amenity in the plan I have on the screen here, you know, kind of flanking May. It's not the end-all location, but we're thinking that that's a little bit more of a quieter street, and that would be easier to kind of service the tenants of the building with bike needs. Yeah, I mean, you're going to, like you said, you're going to get into this in the next kind of piece of this, but yeah, we definitely need more bike paths. We definitely need more bike infrastructure in Fulton Market and the rest of the city of Chicago for that matter. We are also providing a divvy station, kind of unrelated to your question, along May Street. We're working with CDOT on providing that.
It's great, and like and I hate to cut you off, and I should cut myself off. Like they're wonderful tools. They lean into what we want to see in the city, and particularly through the Sustainable Development Plan. But unless there are safe ways to go to and from the building to the daily rounds of your life, it's going to be challenging to see those utilities, those provisions used to their full extent. That's all I'll say on it for right now. I really appreciate the thoughtfulness in your responses, though, very sincerely. Thank you, Chair.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Piñeiro, followed by Commissioner Tillman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Great project, and thank you for the thoughtful and comprehensive approach to it. Comment about the public space. Really appreciate the fact that you made modifications to the design to really incorporate the public and green space, which is important, you know, for me personally, and also we've had a lot of discussions with this commission related to that. Question about May, expanding on the May point that I thought I heard you mention that it's a challenging street and you had to really address some issues. Can you elaborate on what happened there and how you addressed it?
Sure. You know, like I mentioned, I've lived, worked, and played in Fulton Market for many years, and it is, you know, it used to be an avenue that I would personally come from the train and walk down May, and always noticed it's not really the most friendliest of ways to enter the market, and mainly it's because it's just around the viaduct. Really, it's just because of the nature of this particular building. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot of, it's kind of the blank end of the project, of the building as it stands now. There's not a lot of access. There's a lot of mechanical that's kind of built in around this facade. And so we thought it was a great opportunity to change that. With Trammell Crow now, they've activated their sidewalk. And now with this, we wanted to do something in kind. And I think once you have that kind of synergy on both ends of the block, you really start to create something special. So I think that's going to be really successful here, and it's not going to lose the integrity of the architectural, you know, fabric of this particular building. I think it's going to accentuate it, and it's going to make it look better.
Thank you, and thank you for, I forgot to mention, thank you for the presentation around the incorporating the existing structure into the design. Very, very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Tillman.
Again, thank you for this project. I think it is very beautiful. I appreciate the attention to the site plan and locating the loading and the vehicular access off of the main corridors, which I think brings even more viability to the discussion around the pedestrian and the communal access at the ground level in that activity. And so I appreciate your responses to all of that. I did want to ask regarding, kind of bring it back to the financing question. Is there a consideration or thought of challenge of the scale of this project as it relates to the financing? You know, you're going to be bringing on about 600 units at a time, when that's, you know, been a challenge, and we can see from the research that you've done with the scale of the projects that are also coming to be within the area. So is there any concern regarding the financing as far as the scale of the project is concerned?
Sure, I think, again, the mic that doesn't work. A question I think is really about the absorption, right? The ability to absorb the number of units. I'm going to ask Jason to come up here and kind of speak to their experience with projects of this scale, including their probably most visibly prominent project that we can all point to is NEMA. and kind of speak to the challenges. As we all know, it is a very challenging market generally, but in particular for multifamily residential in Chicago. So, Jason, if I could ask you to kind of come up and just kind of speak to your experience, your thoughts on how you would approach the financing for a project like this, and maybe and addressing Commissioner Tillman's question about the ability of the market to absorb the number of units.
For the record, Jason Buckberg, Crescent Heights. Thanks for the question. Thanks for your time. If we were going out to the market today for financing, I agree it'd be very challenging. Number one, the city has headline risk. I think it's a tough thing to kind of get through. Number two, we're just kind of coming out of the pandemic, and then we kind of got all whacked by the macroeconomic financial markets. And number three, the project is large. As a developer, this is what we do. We typically don't do smaller projects. So we find comfortability, economies of scale, critical mass in the larger developments. Weirdly, we have a great sense of comfort with that. We are privately funded. We are not a publicly traded company. We don't raise funds. I'm really just investing on behalf of a family, is really what it is, who loves the city of Chicago and has loved it for the last 25 years. Recently, as Mariah said, we completed an 800-unit project in the South Loop, and I would say that there were many more naysayers about building that large of a project in the South Loop versus Fulton Market. Sadly, the financial markets aren't so great right now for us to refinance. However, the project itself has performed exceptionally well and has been received well by the city and the neighborhood. And I think Alderman Dow was very pleased by the project as well. So I would say in a year's time, when we're going out to the market and evaluating the financial condition and understanding what debt looks like and equity maybe, I think we'll be in a better position. I think if you read CoStar reports, the city is set up so well for the next 5 years from an absorption standpoint, from a rental rate standpoint. We feel so positive about this market relative to some of our other projects in South Florida or on the West Coast. So we feel very good, but it's going to be challenging, and it's what we signed up for. So we're going to figure out a way to get it done.
Thank you for that response. Appreciate it.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Soto.
So this is a comment for everyone. So in the last presentation, that was a $65 or $68 million project, right? They had reported 150 construction jobs. On this project, they're reporting 1,200 jobs, right? How much? 1,400. 1,400. The data is not adding up, right? When people are coming and presenting to us. I've been in the owner's representative industry for over 20 years. I know how budgets are built. I know that early on you include line items for different things. If a building wants to be net zero, you allocate the funds for that. If you want certain amenities, you allocate funds for that. So if we're allocating funds early on, then we also have to include funds for bringing diversity on board. And that has to be part of this conversation. Yes, sustainability is important. Yes, all of the aspects that we're lining out are important, but so is the economic development that we're creating through these projects. And the fact that we are not getting data over and over again, or plans from organizations that are coming before us to present, is not encouraging, because it does not seem like it's a priority of development, and it has to be. I would like to see plans early on, because as soon as we hire the architect, we know who all their consultants are. We know down all the way to the permit expediter, right? And who's participating on all of our projects when we're sitting down and thinking about it, because it becomes a priority. Same thing with the general contractors. There's always, with these private developments, the general contractors are putting in their bids already the fee that the city's going to be charging them for not meeting local hiring or minority and women participation goals. That is built into their budget. That's the truth. So we need to start bringing that out and having these organizations report back to us. And if they have historically been building in the city of Chicago, then I want to know historically what the MBE and WBE participation has been. We have to make this a priority. And if the way that we get attention is by holding our vote or voting no, then that's what we're going to have to start enacting, because this is very important.
Thank you.
Completely agree. I think we did see a change, right, from the meeting, last meeting to this one. It got even more loose about the requirement. Not sure why that happened, but let's go back to being serious about actually coming in with the data prepared, because you're completely right. We know how this works. They've been working on this for years. Everybody that comes up here has been working on this for years. You have your numbers figured out. You have your teams figured out. So please be prepared to do that. We'll work with the city to make people accountable. We'll work with the teams to be specific about what we need, but we do expect that from now on. So let's just make that clear today. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just,
Another comment from Commissioner Lyons, and then followed by Commissioner Escareño.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Commissioner, for your comments. I had a question on the sustainability, and this is just to learn more about how you're thinking about this. I noticed that workforce development was not one of the selections. Is that correct? That when you were looking at your matrix?
Honestly, we haven't finalized our matrix. We're just trying to pick what we think is most applicable at the time. But really, the next phase for us is to hire all of the engineering and sustainable consultants. We don't have those groups lined up yet, and that's usually at the time where we really kind of workshop which points in particular we're going to pursue and how we're going to comply with the ordinance. So that is something that we can do. We're not objecting to it.
Got it. I guess just a follow-up, but my understanding of the workforce development part of the matrix is, engaging with community organizations. I would sort of like just a primer on it, but I feel like sometimes it gets lost in the sustainability matrix a little bit, and just trying to understand, where does that kind of fall into your priorities?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We're happy to do that. Like I mentioned, we don't have any consultants or anything of that nature, professional at least, lined up at this point. But when the project advances to that stage, that's definitely something that we can accommodate.
I would just offer sort of an observation. I also would appreciate a primer on, how it can be fully deployed on all types of projects. The projects where I see that particular strategy being used are projects like restaurants or other businesses that are coming in that sort of have the hiring capacity, like they're the ones who are going to be hiring the people who are working at the site on sort of the permanent basis. So that's just the observation that I'll offer.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Escareño?
yes, just a really brief comment. I just want to echo the sentiments of the commissioners, both on the open space and sustainability and greening, and certainly the MBE, WBE, and just getting some of that information up front. But I did want to just say that I do appreciate the projects that are really listening to community, and I do understand that maybe one of our speakers doesn't agree with the height, but I do think that the community input and feedback into these projects are really, really important. The other thing I just want to highlight is that having this broad range of affordability and really creating a community in what is a very dense area of Chicago, opening it up to not only affordability and creating different scales of affordability, but also the opening up of public space and green space. I know we can do, much more in this general area, but this is one of the few projects that I've seen recently that really attempted to do much more of an open space, really bringing the, the green space that is incorporated into your project into actually the community. So very walkable space, very friendly to not just your tenants or the residents that are going to be part of this development, but also the outside. And I think it's just lacking in this entire area. So it's just something that I want to flag, really building communities, right? It's bringing in families, hopefully, and of different income levels, but also that openness. And I think we really need to think about how a lot of these developments that are insular and really providing just green space and amenities internally for their property, residents. It's how do these developments become part of the greater community in an area that's so dense, and so really welcoming the entire community into these spaces and opening it up to increase green space for the area is really something that we should be focused on, and I appreciate that in this project, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Alderman Burnett, would you like to make a statement on this?
Thank you very much. First of all, commissioners, I'd like to commend you all and thank you for giving up your civic duty to be here. Some of you all are giving up your own work, not the city folks. You get paid anyway, but all people. But everybody else, thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much for being here.
This one's better.
You just ripped my pants. Thank you very much for being here. And I know the long hours. This is a short meeting. This is probably going to be one of your shortest meetings. But if this is your first time here, don't get used to this, right? Because this meeting goes on for a long time. So I want to thank you all for all the hours you put in. And I miss you guys. I miss spending a whole bunch of hours with you guys, being on the Plan Commission. I also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the new commissioner, or the to-be new commissioner, right? She's working already, even though she's not sworn in yet, and I look forward to working with you. So welcome. And I want to thank her. She's actually working now. I want to thank her and Commissioner Boatwright. Did I say that right? Boatwright. Yeah, thank you all very much for working on this deal yesterday. I appreciate it. Sorry I wasn't able to come to the meeting. I'd like to thank Patrick and Fernando and what's his name from Housing? Ricardo. I want to thank you all very much for working on the affordability situation with this. So thank you very much. Commissioner, I got to tell you, Patrick is very innovative. He really, I mean, from the last meeting at the Plan Commission when we talked about the 30% affordability, Patrick went to work right away the next day and started trying to come up with a plan to make this thing work. And I don't think that should go unnoticed. So I commend you, Patrick, and thank you very much for your efforts on trying to make these things work. That's what you're doing, so I really appreciate that. So this, as a developer and a counselor said, and I want to thank Mariah too, because she put in a lot of work. She probably getting paid for all the hours she's putting in, but I want to thank her for everything she did on this. This development for me is in a unique community because on the other side of the Vadok, on Kinsey, I have low-rise housing, right? And what I try to encourage the developers to do is kind of stay away from Kinsey Street so that those folks don't see the height right away, right? Because a lot of this stuff is perception, right? And so I try to push them more over toward away from the train tracks, so the people on the other side of the train tracks, they view when they look out their door is not, this massive building. I appreciate Butler encouraging folks to do what he's doing. I'm glad that I have him and George Blakemore to tell me what to do in my ward. I really appreciate all of their help. They are great advisors. But as elected officials, we got to be sensitive to our community. At the end of the day, that's how we survive and be here. We get elected, all of that good stuff. But at the same time, in this community, we also try to let our neighbors know, our residents know that this development has to happen. Something has to happen here for the wellness of the city of Chicago, because it's important for the whole city. And I just want to commend my community for being sensitive and understanding that, right? They could have tarred and feathered me a long time ago in relationship to all these developments, but they've been working with us and allowing these things to happen. And so to get the developer to compromise and bringing the development down a little bit was it was a little win for the community. It wasn't a lot, but it was a little, but it was a statement to the community that they were listening to them. So I really want to commend and thank the developer also. Although when the developer first came to the table, they were bragging about being the tallest building in the area, and the tallest tower, that's what they call it. And I was like, dude, you can't come to the community and say you're gonna build the tallest tower. You're trying to get us in trouble. But so they went back to the table and revised their plan and came back, and we got something that the community felt like they were heard. And so I appreciate that. Also, as far as the open space goes, this open space, this area in the Fulton Market in the West Loop, we don't have a lot of public space in this community. So to get any kind of open space is a benefit to this neighborhood, because the city can't create it, right? So when developers pitch in and create it, I think it's a great thing. And all of the developments that have been coming before you all, there's been encouragement for them to have more open space and areas for people to be able to, enjoy and share with the whole community. So I appreciate that. And this just adds to it. This development on Racine Street is actually across the street from one of the first residential developments in this area. It's for over 30 years. And these residents have all townhomes. You know what I'm saying? And of course, I've been dealing with them for 30 years, right? So, of course, we had to, be sensitive to that. But having that open space right over there by them is something that they really appreciate, And so I appreciate the developer dealing with that. This is going to bring 1,400 jobs. I know you say, those numbers and all that technical stuff. I appreciate that. But one of the things that I do try to do with these developers, and I really like when they have their contractor, when they come to the table, so we can get a commitment, because generally what I do is, and you all know this, I try to get them to joint venture with a contractor, right? Because if you joint venture with a minority contractor, you already got your minority numbers covered. Right, it's not rocket science. It's already covered with the joint venture, so you might as well do it. And what we have been doing is encouraging people to joint venture with minority contractors. And what this has done is given a lot of those contractors capacity, and now they become bigger contractors, like BOA. A lot of y'all don't know BOA. BOA really got a lot of things happening over in this area because we helped them joint venture. Now they prime contractors, right? And so we're trying to create more of them. And so we try to get this joint venture in our community in order to help with that. So this developer know that's what I encourage. Only carrot I have with that is if you want to do something else, you got to deal with me, right? In this instance, because they don't have a contractor here. So most of the major general contractors know what our system is and how we work. We also work with a job placement organization called CEC that, work with contractors. Most of the contractors in the area that screen people, get resumes, help them get training, all of that stuff, and help them get on these jobs. And they also work with Hire 360 and all those other organizations. So they work together on a lot of these things, and also Revolutionary Workshop and all of the above organizations to get minorities involved. So I'm hopefully Crescent Heights, who look like they look like this is not going to be their only stop. It look like they're going to continue to go. We're very excited about it. And I also think that having by the time this development is done, the economy is going to be a lot better, and there's going to be a lot more people to rent these apartments. I think if you build it, they will come, and I'm happy to hear that folks think that the economy is going to change for the equity and the debt. I just was at a ribbon cutting with for the mayor with Wells Fargo, and they opening up 25 more sites in the city of Chicago, and they're excited about investing in the city of Chicago. And so when you have a bank, doubling down like that, it tells you something about our city. So this is an exciting project. I appreciate everybody who worked on it, I think we helping with policy here. So I just want to say I'm excited about it. I thank my community, West Central Association, and the neighbors of the West Loop for working on this. I just want to say I support this 100%. Look forward to them breaking ground. Grateful that they kept the existing buildings and going to enhance that, and thinking about thinking about what they can do in cooperation with the other developments around the area as far as the sidewalks go. I think this is a great development. It looks nice, and I look forward to having more things come before you. Thank you very much. I support this.
Thank you, Alderman Burnett. Any questions for the alderman or the applicant? Nope. We're good. Okay, well, if not, then we'll go ahead and call for a motion on this item. Do I have a motion on a proposed residential business plan development submitted by 420 North May Property LLC for the property generally located at 420 North May Street, finding that it meets the requirements for approval?
So moved, Escareño.
Motion by Commissioner Escareño. Do I have a second?
Second, Tillman.
Second motion by Commissioner Tillman. Roll call vote. Commissioner Boatright?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Castañeda?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Escareño?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores? Yes. Commissioner Laspata?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Lyons?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Thank you. I have a proxy vote for Commissioner Piñeiro. It's a yes. Commissioner Soto?
Yes.
Commissioner Cicho Lopez?
Yes.
Thank you. And Commissioner Tillman?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you.
I would not be remiss if I didn't thank you all for voting on the hotel.
There's always another side.
The final item on the agenda, it's an informational presentation. Heidi Sperry from the Department of Planning and Development will provide an informational presentation on the initial phase of the 2-year planning process for the Central Area Plan, a 20-year vision for equitable downtown growth. This update will include an overview of the draft Central Area Existing Conditions and Trends report, a summary of the feedback received throughout 2023 community engagement activities, and a discussion of a draft vision statements, which will guide the second phase of the initiative in 2024. The goal of the planning process is to create an implementable, community-driven vision that is informed by the past, rooted in equity, and shaped by the Chicagoans on behalf of the entire city. The study area boundaries reflect Chicago's downtown zoning district, which is generally bounded by Division Street on the north, portions of Ogden Avenue, Ashland Avenue and Halsted Street on the west, portions of Cermak Road and 25th Street on the south, and Lake Michigan on the east.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Commission members and Madam Chairwoman. My name is Heidi Sperry, and I'm with the Department of Planning and Development, and I lead the Central Region. And I want to thank you and I tell you that I appreciate the opportunity to provide this update on the Central Area Plan Update Initiative to you today. Last year, in early spring, you'll recall that we kicked off a 2-year, 2-phase planning process to envision a new set of objectives for the Central Area. These objectives needed to align with the citywide needs and address the long-term goals that we've defined as part of our visioning process. We have now reached the midway point of our Central Area Plan Update Initiative. To remind you, it has been 20 years since the adoption of the existing Central Area Plan, and that 2003 plan was anticipated to serve as the city's formal vision for our downtown economic development and for land use policies and goals for 20 years. It was followed by the Central Area Action Plan of 2009, and that was largely a project-based implementation plan to set forward and to promote the goals of the 2003 plan. But today, as the downtown faces new opportunities and challenges, and especially in light of the pandemic, it's critical that we reassess our priorities. To do this, in phase one, we have defined a community-driven vision for the Central Area by getting feedback from voices throughout the city. We've tracked projects from the past plans, and we've analyzed existing conditions and trends to inform our work as we create the vision framework that will shape phase two, which will happen this year. And throughout this year, we will craft recommendations for implementation. And ultimately, we'll create a new plan together that will guide the Central Area forward for the next 20 years. We've organized our process, the research, engagement, and visioning around the themes of the citywide framework plan, and we have similarly embraced the principles of equity and resiliency. Prompted by the growth and development, the boundary of the Central Area has continued to expand over the past 20 years. Today, it's defined by the downtown zoning district overlay, which is shown on the map at the far right. This is roughly bounded by Division to the north, Ashland at the farthest point west, 25th Street on the south, and the lakefront on the east. Since the impacts of the Central Area extend far beyond the geographic borders of the Central Area, it is critical that this update be shaped by all Chicagoans. So to do this, we sought a variety of ways to reach people through virtual webinars, in-person meetings, open houses. We attended pop-up events at neighborhood festivals. We had online surveys and focus group meetings. And I'm pleased to report that over the past year, we have engaged with nearly 6,500 people, meeting folks where they are, such as at the Taste of Pullman, the Taste of Humboldt Park, farmers markets in Austin and Uptown, and the Silver Room Block Party in Hyde Park. A full report of our engagement is summarized in the report that you have before you at your seat. But I would like to today just share a snippet of the feedback that we have received from our various sources of outreach. First, beginning with the online survey. Over 70% of the 2,700 respondents that participated in our online survey agreed or strongly agreed that they enjoy spending time in the Central Area. 79% of those folks agreed or strongly agreed that the Central Area is easy and accessible to get to. Over 90% of the respondents either reside in or often visit the Central Area, and over 70% agree or strongly agree that they feel welcome in the Central Area. The Riverwalk and Millennium Park were identified as the most useful downtown projects to be constructed and completed since 2003. When asked what would make the downtown more enjoyable, people often cited pedestrian-only streets, improved public safety, more outdoor space, as we've heard today and talked about, and the opportunity to have publicly available space to socialize and to create a community in the Central Area. And looking ahead 5 years, we talked to folks about what their priorities would be. And those priorities included increased and improved public safety and infrastructure improvements, and approximately 44% of respondents selected expanding mixed-use, affordable housing options, and activating closed storefronts. Throughout phase one, We also gathered input from young people through a youth-focused survey and sweepstakes at the Mayor's Youth Commission and through the 27th Ward Back to School event hosted by Alderman Burnett. We received over 1,500 responses in the youth survey, and we targeted individuals between the ages of 14 and 24. Nearly a third of the respondents go to school downtown or often visit the downtown. Very few indicated that they never go downtown. When we asked what would make the downtown more welcoming for young adults, 63% identified offering more free or low-cost events. And looking ahead 10 years, the top 3 words that young people would use to describe their vision for the future of our downtown is safe, sustainable, and diverse. These are some of the common themes outlined here that have emerged through feedback that was gained at our 8 pop-up events as well as our first open house. And again, these are all summarized in our engagement findings report, and I would encourage you to look through those and really kind of take the opportunity to review the priorities that were set forth. Some additional takeaways, again, in focusing on the desire to have open space, and not only open space, publicly accessible open space that makes better connections to the lakeshore and to the trails and the richness and the amount of public open space that we have on the east side of the central area. So next, working with our consultant team, which included SB Friedman, Altogether Studio, Rudd Resources, Ginkgo Planning, and Blue Daring, we analyzed the existing conditions and trends of the central area. And a copy of that 150-page report is also at your seat. So I just want to highlight a couple of key data points today. So we know that the downtown has many assets. It's our job center with over half of the city's private sector jobs. And in terms of jobs growth from 2010 to 19, Chicago's downtown has performed very well. It is essentially tied with New York City. From 2000 to 2020, downtown Chicago has had the fastest growing population in the country's largest downtowns. And I'm sorry, you can see the peer towns that we've compared the city with. So this population growth trend from over the past 20 years is more easily seen in the bar chart. From 2000 to 2020, the downtown has added over 87,000 residents. Since 2010, more than 60 million square feet of development have been completed or are under construction. In 2022, 64% of that total investment was dedicated to residential uses. Investment in downtown development has tracked with our economic cycles, and you can see kind of the ebbs and flows related to the recession, related to the pandemic. But overall trends show an average annual investment of $1.3 billion in new construction from 2006 to 2022, and that's based on the citywide permit data. Among downtowns of the 10 largest cities, Chicago's residential rental occupancy is at 93%. An average multifamily rent in 2023 is similar to San Diego or Los Angeles. However, the downtown has very little affordable housing, especially when compared to citywide percentages. In the downtown district, only 10% of rental units are affordable, or naturally occurring affordable units, compared to 47% citywide. The downtown core is also experiencing office vacancies, as we all know, especially with older buildings, and this has been exacerbated by work from home. The future of the downtown office market affects the entire city because the area accounts for 45%, almost half, of the citywide taxable value. Another challenge facing the central area is the unequal access to jobs downtown. While half of the 620,000 downtown private sector jobs employ Chicagoans, 33% of those jobs are held by residents of the north, central, and northwest sides, and only 19% are held by residents of the south and west sides. High retail vacancies are also concerning. Empty storefronts negatively impact people's experience of downtown. But more importantly, it has a negative impact on tax revenues as well. From 2019 to 2020 in the zip codes that overlap the downtown, a sales tax revenue decreased by 47%. That is the equivalent of a reduction in sales of $186 million. Finally, as we heard earlier today, downtown hotel rates and occupancies are rebounding, and they're doing fairly well since the pandemic. But visitor rates downtown are still not back to their pre-pandemic levels. So we have some work to do, of course. Building off the findings of this existing conditions analysis and the incredible feedback that we received from public engagement, as well as the feedback that we received from other departments and sister agencies, we crafted the vision framework for the central area. Just last month in December, we held an open house at the Cultural Center to share that draft vision framework with the public, and the event was attended by over 150 people. Working collectively, we have defined and we will continue to refine the overall city vision and the vision statement that you see here, which expresses the goal to make the central area more vibrant, more resilient, and more welcoming for everyone. Guiding statements were also prepared for each of the major themes of the plan, and these goals include ways to reimagine the central area, which celebrate Chicago's unique history, arts, and culture, connects all Chicagoans and to the downtown's diverse learning options, creates a diverse, affordable, 24/7 neighborhood in the central area. Additional goals for our vision statement themes is to extend downtown's economic and housing opportunities, to support retail business innovation, and define and create an inclusive workforce. We also seek to enhance accessibility both to and throughout the central area. Finally, in terms of environmental and climate, we're seeking to advance sustainable practices, and with regard to public health and safety, we certainly are envisioning a path forward as part of our framework that reflects the diversity of the city and welcomes all. Now let's talk about next steps. The full version of our draft reports are posted online, and they were posted online beginning in December. We will continue to seek public comment on all three of the reports, the existing conditions, the engagement findings, and the vision statements through February 1st. And then after that public review period, we'll finalize and then release the final vision framework. Our next steps for phase 2 will include defining and studying focus areas throughout the central area. Then we will identify implementation strategies and recommendations which build upon the vision framework that we have established. We'll continue to engage with Chicagoans throughout this process, and then ultimately we'll draft an updated plan which we will bring to you after a period of public review for adoption by the end of 2024. I'd like to add one final note. We've worked with a very collaborative and diverse group of consultants, and our MBE and WBE participation exceeded our executive order of 26 and 6. We actually achieved 29 and 12 with our consultant participation. So with that, I feel like we've covered a lot of information. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Any comments or questions by the commissioners?
I just have one question. Heidi, can you talk a little bit about, there was a percentage of workforce that you indicated from Chicago that are actually working in the essential area, and I think you pointed to a great disparity, about 19% coming from the south and west side. Can you just talk a little bit about what are some of the factors that this is pointing to? Is it transportation? Is it, lack of connectivity to those jobs? How do we work to increase those percentages?
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Escareno. I'm going to find that slide. But really, we've identified that this is a holistic and maybe I would say a systemic kind of an issue. The jobs, it definitely is a connectivity issue. It's an accessibility issue. Providing transit that encourages and allows for folks to get downtown easily is going to be a key. That's a no-brainer. But then it also involves establishing workforce training programs, offering folks the opportunity to get involved as learners through the diverse offerings that are available downtown. So I think that there is, it will take certainly a multi-faceted approach because we've seen that there are many factors that contribute to this disparity.
And I just want to say, this is wonderful. Thank you. There's such rich information, and for those of us beyond this work that we're doing here, it's really helpful to our agencies to really inform the kind of work we need to be doing to really move all of us along and make this much more of an equitable city. So thank you for the work that you guys are doing, and Commissioner, thank you for your efforts here as well.
Yeah, go right
I
ahead.
just want to echo the sentiments and just give a shout out to the team. They've put so much effort in really being thoughtful with engagement, and they've done a phenomenal job just with outreach, and not just to the usual suspects, to meeting people where they are, which you eloquently stated, especially engaging our youth. We're talking about planning for a generation ahead, and so just the thoughtfulness behind it, I'm so proud of, and I want the team to be so proud of. And while you'll continue to hear just the progress of the plan, I would be remiss if I didn't just say great work to the team.
Thank you very much.
Just to clarify, are these documents easily accessible for the public?
Yes, they are all posted on the city's website.
Okay.
And we have the link
Great.
here. We're also going to be kind of sending out e-blasts through our social media accounts to encourage folks to make comment before the February 1st deadline.
It's quickly
rapidly
approaching. Yeah,
approaching.
Yep.
And this document with the links is on the Plan Commission website.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
thank
thank
you.
you for the hard copies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Anybody else? Yeah, Commissioner Espada.
I feel like I'm cutting people in line because I believe Commissioner Sixto, did you
Yeah.
have your hand up first? Okay, all right.
It's a very loose system that we have, so I'm sorry.
No, it's phenomenal. I don't know the last time I had documents placed in front of me that was so genuinely excited to read. I'm really, really, really looking forward to it.
Thank you.
It speaks so deeply to what this body really is about. We do a lot of approving developments, and that's phenomenal, but the opportunity to participate in genuine planning work is very, very exciting to me. I'll try to just ask a couple questions. I'm so curious because I was looking at online survey participation versus pop-up event participation.
Yeah.
And I don't know, did we track more demographics related to the two? Because I have a hunch, looking at our zip codes, that the demographics of who participated online might look significantly different from those who participated in the pop-ups.
First of all, I want to thank you for your question. I didn't delve too deeply into this because I didn't want to geek out on the data. But since you raised the question, I'm happy to talk more about it. You're absolutely right. When you put out an online survey, oftentimes the demographic that you hear from is largely a white demographic. And so with that understanding, we really kind of adjusted our tactics and looked at an engagement strategy that would get us out into the neighborhoods. And so for that reason, you see that we very consciously chose to be at pop-up events that brought us to neighborhoods that we likely would not have heard from if we relied exclusively on the online survey results.
I'm so curious, like, thank you for sharing that, number one. And it makes me so curious where you see intersection and division between the kind of downtown that those who live there would like to plan for and those who would like to visit there would like to plan for. Did we see points of convergence and divergence on that?
You know, what we tried to do in our engagement summary is really kind of provide you with the raw information that we received. So as you go through the pages, kind of beginning roughly on page 17, if you look at the pop-up events, you'll see that we kind of gave you the unfiltered takeaways. And if people wrote down public comments, we just simply included verbatim the information that we received. And it's very interesting. There are certainly, comments that I think are neighborhood specific, comments that we heard from folks in Humboldt Park versus folks in Pullman. But I think that generally there is a great desire, regardless of whatever neighborhood you're in, to be connected with the downtown, to have those opportunities, to be able to raise a family affordably downtown.
I think it's fascinating. I mean, I want to do so much more reading. I feel like there, particularly over my last term in office, I feel like there was at times a turbulent relationship between downtown and the broader diverse communities of Chicago. I think that there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. I'm really curious to see how we plan for that, how we build for that. I'll be curious to see which trends we feel like are sustainable, which we feel are healthy. The notion that 53% of Chicago's jobs are downtown is so striking. And at the same time, I wonder to myself, is that the balance that we want to pursue? They're curious questions that I don't feel like I have answers for, but I love how they're raised up in the documents here. And I think that's all I'll say for now. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Sicho Lopez?
Thank you. And I think you can hear me. That is okay. But okay. Thank you again, and I think this is good to see the report back. And I think the vision that I think focuses on equity. Two questions. I see like in the presentation around vacancies, or what is it about? Was it correct that you said about vacancies in the central area about 7%? Is that right, or around 10% vacancy? Is that right? I want to understand kind of. My question will be around. We're seeing cities like New York facing, issues with, especially around commercial vacancies, right? And the huge need, I think, for affordability, right? And I think there's room there for us to achieve the goals of the central area and the larger goal of affordability in the city, right? And we see the discrepancy. So maybe you can expand around vacancies, right? And another challenges around property taxes, and how that connects with affordability. So maybe if you can expand a little bit more on the vacancies, and if you see any opportunities or ways to discuss the affordability part.
Sure. Thank you for your question. Just to clarify, currently Chicago is at about a 54% occupancy.
Okay.
So then in terms of vacancies, we're looking at roughly 45% vacancies, which is staggering. And in terms of commercial space vacancies, CBR Richard Ellis just recently reported that we have in the downtown area the equivalent of 7 Sears Towers of commercial vacancy. It's a staggering amount of space. So I have to confess that as part of what we have been doing is really kind of gathering the data at this point, talking with folks and establishing the vision. We've yet to really synthesize that into specific recommendations for affordable housing, but we certainly, I think, understand that there's an overwhelming demand for affordability downtown. And we have certainly a great inventory of vacant structures. And you know, Alderman, through our LaSalle Reimagine initiative, we're really kind of starting to look, you know, creatively at reusing those commercial buildings for affordable housing uses and building on and bringing families downtown to the central core in a way that we have never, you know, envisioned before.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate the graphic explanation to see how much vacant opportunities we have. I think Alderman Burnett and I, we sat on the ARO task force, right? When there was conversations around 20% was going to be a horrible thing, you know. And I do think that as we see, right, the changes, that creativity, I think is going to be very important, right, about seeing these as opportunities. We would like to see more families, you know, across the board. There's a huge deficit around family size affordable housing, right?
Right.
So if we see opportunities also with the, I mean, I saw in the presentation briefly about the federal government also around being more creative, right, around the investment directly on housing and affordable housing, because I think the tax credit model have a lot of limitations, right? And I think how it connects to our property tax structures as well, right? Because right now my biggest concern is how we have basically by the system that we have in property taxes transfer a lot of the appeals into neighborhoods and also have become unaffordable. So we're seeing the challenges in both Central District and in our neighborhoods. So I'd love to see how we can discuss with aldermen, because I think it's still challenges pushing for affordable housing because of misconceptions. So how do we can coordinate with local aldermen, but also seeing the big picture? Because the need for affordable, I think, is across the board. And in downtown, I appreciate that you give us the sense of how big this is, because this represents an opportunity to transform how we've been doing things.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
We look forward to continuing this conversation with you as we move into phase 2, and we really start to identify focus areas, and we start to look at implementation strategies and recommendations for tackling some of these issues.
Absolutely. We love to be part of it as a housing committee.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lyons, followed by Alderman Burnett.
Thank you. I agree. I'm very excited to dive into this, and thank you so much for your work. I think the data is just really going to be so helpful in moving forward, and appreciate all the work that went into it. And this may be answered if I actually sat down and read it a little bit more in depth, but I'm curious about how we're thinking about, you know, the success of downtown trickling or being a pipeline into our neighborhoods, to make sure, whether it's through, you know, I noticed the transportation, but also like the pipeline to the jobs that are created through our tourism, you know, the quality of those jobs. How are we measuring? Like, I was looking at the job growth by sector, and one question that came to my mind was, you know, who is actually employed by these sectors, and where do they live? What are they making? And sort of how do we make sure, how are we measuring all those to make sure that we're really thinking about the health of our downtown as the health of our neighborhoods holistically?
Absolutely. Thank you for the comment. And I think that this, you know, closely connects with the issue that Commissioner Escareno raised, just about how do we identify and how do we, now that we have identified that there is this disparity, what will it take to correct those issues? And again, I think that it's going to take looking at probably all of the pillars. We're looking at 9 major themes, and I don't think that there will be one single silver bullet to address this issue, but I think that there is a hopefulness that by connecting the communities more tightly to the downtown, whether it be culturally, educationally, even just physically in terms of infrastructure and transportation, that we will create that nexus of bringing people back to the central area and back to benefit from the central area. And even, you know, I mean, taking up the comment that Mr. Blakemore made, bringing local businesses from neighborhoods downtown, such a key thing and such a really an important thing that we need to bake into our plan as we move forward.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you again for the work. I did want to kind of expand on what you're saying a little bit because I was actually at an event yesterday where it was talking about, you know, Chicago, we hear so many things about the downtown and the vacancies and things of that nature. However, we still understand that we are the economic engine of the region. And so I think that understanding especially what the downtown core, even at a weak point, what kind of economic benefit that has to the other neighborhoods, the collar counties, and the state as a whole. I mean, I know that delves even more deeper into kind of the research that you're doing, but I think that the information that you've set out is amazing, and I'm excited to look at it, but really kind of understanding, you know, the breadth of what the downtown core can do to increase the economic viability of the city, the counties, the state, et cetera, I think is going to be very valuable.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I've been involved with most of your meetings. I didn't make the last one that you spoke at, Commissioner. I want to commend your staff. They've done a bang-up job with this. They listened to everyone. I don't know who that consultant was that you had working with you all.
We worked with a great team. The team was SB Friedman, Rudd Resources, did a lot of our engagement. Altogether Studios and Ginkgo Planning was involved.
Yeah, so they all did a great job. Even so, I was trying to encourage them early on about, you know, just a little while after the some of the young people did some stuff downtown that, you know, that these young people don't recognize downtown as being a part of them, right? And how we need to get them involved with the Central Area Plan and let them help to plan you know, what the central area is, you know, because that's how you get them to be more of a part of it. So I know you made some efforts in doing those things. Can you tell us some of the efforts that you made in engaging the young people to be more involved?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman Burnett, for that question. Definitely, your suggestion and your prompting helped shape our thinking and helped shape our approach. And we recognize that we really do need to connect however we possibly can. And we need to make this our goal at the forefront to connect with those young voices. And so we did that in a number of different ways. We had a sweepstakes, and with our online survey, you could enter a sweepstakes to win gift cards. And through that effort, we gained 1,500 responses from young folks between the ages of 14 and 24. We actually sought out opportunities to meet with the mayor's youth council. We had a kind of a charrette with them to talk to them about what they need from the downtown to feel welcome, to feel supported. Where do they feel the downtown falls short in terms of responding to their needs and what opportunities exist out there? And then finally, you know, the pop-up events, I think I don't have a demographic of the age ranges that we reached at the pop-up events, but certainly we reached, and I can just say this anecdotally, lots of families, lots of kids. And then at the 27th Ward Back to School event, you know, we had a great connection with young folks.
Also, I wanted to mention, I mean, that's shocking to hear that you say that our vacancy rate is 4 Sears Tower buildings.
7.
7? That's scary as hell. I mean, that is scary. So it's something we had to do with that. But we And I know landlords have a challenge with not getting rent and also paying a high taxes too. I know though that's a quagmire that they're in with dealing with that. Coincidentally, matter of fact, the commissioner who just walked out was talking to me about there's a group of folks trying to put together a Afro-Latino museum, right? And they're trying to get some of the schools or whatever the case may be. It'd be great if one of those vacant buildings would allow something like that to be in there, a museum that's going to attract people to downtown and get involved. You know what I'm saying? So if some of these, and if we came up with some kind of benefit to help the developer or the owner of the property, if we did something like that, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Because they right now looking in all these communities, it should be downtown. I mean, the Afro-Latino thing is real big that we don't even, most African and Latinos don't even know how connected we are. The history of that and the mixture of that, all around the world, I think would attract a lot of people from all around the world to there. It's just a thought. Her and I was just talking about that, and she was asking me, am I supporting it? Right, which I am. But we should look at things like that, museums, other things that will attract people to downtown to get in some of these vacant spots, So just wanted to mention that. And I know you don't have any control of that. Also, one of the things that concerns me is how do we have a vision of how many residents are we going to have downtown? Right now we're losing office spaces, but it's going to come back. It's not going to stay that way, right? And I don't want to be caught in the thing where we looking for space, right? Because we done gave it all up for residential.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm a little concerned about too much residential downtown, right? And so just like, the issue with me having, I had to work on these developments down there because they're right across the street from homeowners, right? And I'm concerned about those issues being downtown too,
Sure.
right? Because we do need to continue to let downtown be the job market for the whole region. So just that was just a question that I had about, are we looking at percentage, like carving out how much we want to have in downtown area?
Yeah, if I could just chime in, I think you're spot on. We're absolutely looking at it holistically. And so while we're talking about the central area plan, I really appreciate thoughtfulness with engagement. I want to echo it again with the youth because we're talking about a plan for a generation ahead. Our last plan was over 2 decades ago, right? And we're dealing with challenges that we haven't seen before with remote work, post-pandemic. And so I don't want this to be a bleak and negative kind of report. It's just stating where we are today and how we can be forward thinking and take the vacancy as an opportunity to really be strategic, right? So in addition to the central area plan, we've got a couple ULI TAPs, which are technical assistance panels, where we're thinking really thoughtfully about State Street, about LaSalle, and about Michigan Avenue, understanding that it won't be a one-size-fits-all approach. The idea is not to take every vacant building and reoccupy it with residents. No, we want to find ways to support the business, to attract businesses, to keep companies here, and to help them to expand here, while also thinking creatively about how we can repurpose some of our buildings in thoughtful ways so that we can preserve affordability and create affordability in places where it wasn't affordable residential opportunities for growth. And so I just want to kind of highlight and echo your earlier sentiments about the holistic nature to the plan, and not just planning for today, but planning for 20 years from today. Because downtown will thrive again, and it certainly will help our neighborhoods to thrive. And so I think there's a unique opportunity for us to really be thoughtful about the growth and strategic and make sure that we're being respectful and responsive to the challenges that we're facing in a way that's sustainable and will continue to attract investment.
Yeah, I think something that stayed with me from the presentation yesterday when we had the briefing is also looking for affordable activities for city people to come back to downtown. I love how the summer is great at doing that in our city with festivals and things that everybody comes in for. And just keeping that in mind for the winter. I think we obviously experience all seasons, but the activity in the summer compared to the winter is very different, right? So how do we activate even more spaces and activities during the winter? Again, no answers, but just keeping that thought process and holistic approach to that. And looking into other cities that have done it and we can learn from as well.
That's a great point, and I would be remiss to not acknowledge all of the work that we have done in terms of hearing from, not the work that we have done, but the feedback that we have received from sister agencies and from other departments like DCASE, for instance. They have a slate of ideas of how we can do this, and they've been very generous with their time, and they are going to continue. Parks, CDOT, every sister agency, every city department has been very supportive, and we're going to continue to build on those connections with them to look for exactly what you're saying, ways to enhance and bring folks down to the central area.
Great. And I am sorry, but I forgot that we have 2 speakers signed up to speak on this. Please share your comments as well. Mr. Butler Adams and Mr. George Blakemore, if you want to share your thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know there's still time for this process, but I've been able to attend both public meetings so far. And I've been following basically the Central Area Plan since 2002, since the first one came out of two decades ago. We already know that downtown is an economic engine and the Central Area is an economic engine. So I'm kind of wondering with this plan, how come we're not expanding the boundaries of that economic engine? So I've always thought that IMD and the United Center should be a part of the Central Area. I work downtown. I've worked downtown on the boats now for 24 years. So if you want to, if you have questions for me about that as a Southsider, feel free to ask. We also talk about affordability. It's hard to build affordable downtown because affordable housing is not affordable to build. And there was a meeting that I missed yesterday for a project at Pritzker Park, Assemble Chicago. And I think that project actually has been kind of toned down a little bit. So there needs to be a lot of thought as to how to build affordable housing downtown. Also, I will say that I know that the city right now is trying to do this tax for Bring Home Chicago. And it's already been mentioned about how depressed certain properties are downtown. As of right now, downtown office vacancy is 23.7%. Residential occupancy is 93.6%, so it's kind of flipped around. And there's a building right now in the Clybourne corridor that sold for $90 million 20 years ago, and right now it's about to go up for auction for $5.5 million. So how much money do you all think you're gonna get with that tax? I just think that you all should find another way to bring in that money, maybe a bonus or something like that. But also with this plan, there are also some downtown neighborhood plans within this whole central area, like West Loop, Fulton Market Innovation District, and South Loop. So I also hope that those individual neighborhood plans are being updated along with this one. And as of right now, that's about all I have. But I do hope that you all look to, in fact, expand the actual boundaries to make that economic engine even bigger than what it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The downtown will never be the downtown again. The corporate America, the business people, they're not coming back downtown. So many people are working from home. So if you're looking to see the downtown like it used to be, no. And you will not be able to renovate some of these buildings for residential at all. Because the way it have to be the windows. Nobody wants to just live in the center. It's a lot of going on with this development of these urban cities. Dallas been having this problem for years. Now New York and Chicago is having this problem. But the problem that I'm having with equity. That's the big picture. Will black people be here? What's going on in our city today? Black people are leaving the city. Hispanic, Asian, and whites are moving into the city. But what else is so egregious? The poor whites are moving out of the city. Go uptown, they used to have poor whites. They're gone. Canaryville, over in Bridgeport, these lots sell for $75 or $100 for a vacant lot. So it's two groups that are moving out. The poor whites and the blacks, and the Hispanics are moving in. Seems like somebody has a plan, and is planning to gentrify the black community out. I'm not interested in color. I'm specifically here in all these old loud colors, advocating for black people, for my people. So now what you gonna do with all these empty buildings? You go that these rich people in corporate America own. Are you gonna give them a tax write-off? That's what you're trying to do, is help them under the disguise of helping black people. Something is very evil that's going on here. And why did these other 1, 2, 3, 4 commissioners leave? It's very important for them to be here, dealing with this vision of what's going to become of downtown Chicago. So young lady, you have a great task here, a big responsibility here. How are you going to put all these puzzles in their place without denying black people? I'm not interested in people of color. I'm specific here on the behalf of the black community. I'm not an elected official. So you do that little bill all you want. I'm not getting paid to be here. The ancestors sent me here, and they appreciate me because I'm somebody and we're somebody. Black faces in high places means nothing to me unless you believe in equity to black people. And thank you. And you can come and get this.
Thank you. Any comments? Additional comments? Commissioner Boatright? No? No. Oh, I thought that was a yes. Oh. Anybody? No? Okay, I think we're ready to wrap this meeting up. Thank you. This concludes this month's meeting of the Chicago Plan Commission. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Second, yes. We only have a few people left. Boatright? Yes. Escareño?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Flores, yes. Commissioner La Spata?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Lyons? Commissioner Cicho Lopez? And Commissioner Tillman? Yes. Thank you. We are adjourning. Thank you. Thank you. See you next month. Oh, yes. I don't know what time it is. I'm just hungry. What's that? Made the motion, Boatright and La Spata second. Yes.